Hello there and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle a question that sounds pretty simple on the surface, but wow, it really challenges our whole idea of what makes a civilization great. We're about to dig into thousands of years of philosophy, science, and a totally different way of looking at the world. So let's jump right in. So this is where our story starts, with this quote. It's the raw, visceral reaction of the author, Kadambi Srinivasan, to what seemed like a harmless question, but to him it felt like a slap in the face, like a total dismissal of an entire civilization's history. So you see, this isn't just some academic question, right? It's personal, it's deep, and we're going to spend our time today finding the answer. Okay, so let's just put it out there. For thousands of years, while other civilizations were busy building massive empires and monuments we can still see today, what exactly were the Indians doing? That's what this is all about. We're going to go on a journey to find that answer. And you might be surprised to learn that it starts not with things made of stone, but with ideas.
All right, so where do we even begin to answer something like that? Well, we've got to start at the very beginning, at the philosophical bedrock of Indian thought. And this is a foundation that wasn't seen as something people invented, but as something that was revealed.
You see, the most ancient and sacred texts, the Vedas, are called Sruti, which literally means that which is heard. This is tied to this other incredible idea, a Purushaya, the belief that this knowledge is not of human authorship. The thinking goes that these great spiritual laws are timeless truths, and they were discovered by ancient sages in deep states of meditation. Kind of like how a scientist discovers a fundamental law of physics like gravity. It was always there, someone just had to find it. And what was the central truth they heard? It's this one profound line from the Upanishads. The idea that everything, and I mean everything in the universe, from a tiny grain of sand to the most distant star, it all comes from a single, all-pervading, ultimate reality. And they call this reality Brahman. And you know, this one idea wasn't just accepted and put on a shelf. No way. It kicked off centuries of really intense philosophical debate. You had schools like Advaita saying, hey, our individual soul and that ultimate reality, Brahman, they're one and the same. Then Vishishtadvaita came along and said, well, not exactly the same. The soul is a part of Brahman. And then Dvaita argued, nope, they are totally separate and always will be. This was a civilization that was deeply, deeply invested in figuring out the true nature of reality. Okay, so you might be thinking, this is all very philosophical, very abstract. But here's the thing, it wasn't. This entire framework became a lens, a tool that ancient thinkers used to start mapping out, well, everything, from the inner world of our minds to the vast cosmos outside. So they started by mapping us, our own consciousness, with incredible precision. They came up with this concept of the Pancha Koshas, the 5 sheaths, which says we're these multi-layered beings. You start with the most obvious, the Annamaya Kosha, your physical body. But then you go deeper to the vital energy layer, the mental layer, the intellectual layer, and finally, all the way to the core, the Annamaya Kosha, the sheath of pure bliss. And they didn't stop there. They also came up with this really fascinating idea that all of nature, including our own minds and moods, is governed by 3 fundamental qualities, or gunas. You've got sattva, which is all about purity, harmony, and balance. Then there's rajas, that's the energy of passion, action, and ambition. And finally, tamas, which is inertia, darkness, and inaction. They believed that understanding the play of these 3 forces was the key to understanding all of human behavior. From the inner world, let's jump to the outer one. And a massive leap forward started with this. What you're looking at seems so simple, right? A circle? But this isn't just a placeholder. This is the revolutionary concept of zero. Not just as nothing, but as a number with its own value. An idea that would completely unlock the future of mathematics and science for the entire world. And zero was just the beginning. It was part of this incredible, continuous tradition of mathematics that went on for centuries. I mean, you had guys like Aryabhatta, who was calculating the value of pi with amazing accuracy and arguing that the Earth spins on its own axis. Then came Brahmagupta, who laid down the rules for how to use zero and negative numbers. And get this, centuries before Newton or Leibniz, the Kerala School of Mathematics was already working on the foundational ideas of calculus. Just incredible. All right, so we've talked about abstract math, about the cosmos. Now let's bring it back down to Earth and into our bodies. Let's talk about the deeply practical and holistic science of healing.
This is Ayurveda, which literally means the science of life. And what's so cool about it is that its whole approach was what we'd now call psychosomatic. They totally understood that your mind and your body are completely linked. You can't separate them. So the goal wasn't just to treat a symptom or a disease. It was to bring the whole person, body, mind, and spirit, back into balance. And don't think for a second this was just some kind of philosophical wellness trend. This was serious, practical medicine. Take the Sushruta Samhita, for example. It's this ancient medical encyclopedia that describes things in stunning detail. Complex procedures like cataract surgery, setting broken bones, and even plastic surgery, like reconstructing a nose. I mean, check out how systematic their approach to surgery was. It's broken down into 3 clear steps. You have the Purva Karma, all the preoperative stuff, then the Pradhana Karma, the main operation itself, and then, crucially, the Paschat Karma, all the post-operative care. That's a framework that sounds incredibly modern, doesn't it? It shows they were focused on the patient's entire journey to healing. You know, this kind of structured, thoughtful approach wasn't just for medicine. It was part of a much, much bigger idea that all of life, from a single person's day to how society functions as a whole, could follow a clear and meaningful blueprint. The key to all of this was a concept called Dharma. Now, we often translate that as religion, but honestly, that doesn't even come close. It's more like the underlying cosmic law, the right way of living, the sense of duty that holds everything together in balance. They called it an invisible wealth, the thing that truly sustains a person and a society. And this idea even gave a structure to a person's entire life, a kind of roadmap. They called it the 4 ashramas, or stages of life. Each stage had its own dharma, its own unique purpose. First, you were a student, focused on learning. Then a householder, focused on family and community. Then came retirement, a time for reflection. And finally, the stage of renunciation, focused on spiritual freedom. So how did they keep all this knowledge alive and growing? Well, through these incredible centers of learning. We're not talking about small monasteries here. Places like Takshashila and Nalanda, these were basically the Ivy League universities of the ancient world. Nalanda, at its peak, had something like 10,000 students and scholars who came from all over Asia to study medicine, logic, mathematics, you name it. Okay, so we've journeyed through philosophy, consciousness, math, medicine, and the structure of society itself. It's time to circle all the way back to that first provocative question. Let's ask it one more time with everything we've just seen. What have the Indians been doing all these thousands of years? The answer is they were building something. It just wasn't always made of stone. They were building maps of the human mind. They were building complex systems of mathematics and medicine. They were building detailed frameworks for how to live a meaningful, ethical life. So, were they sitting on their hands? Absolutely not. They were busy with one of the deepest, most sustained explorations into the human condition that the world has ever seen. And maybe, just maybe, the best answer isn't a list of things they did, but this timeless prayer that shows what they were striving for. The work they were doing was this eternal quest, a journey from ignorance to truth, from darkness to light. A journey that, in many ways, continues today. Thanks so much for watching.